Okay, welcome to this review, and this time we're doing a review for some audio plugins. Now, I have open at the moment a podcast I've recorded, my latest horror podcast, because I have a podcast called Love Horror Podcast, and it's just using Amadeus Pro. Now, this is a Mac only program, but please bear in mind this plugin is available for Windows too. You get to these plugins from the effects menu on your program. In the case of Mac, it's normally under something called audio units, and we go and look for our audio units here and find this one. Then we have the ERA or ERA, however you want to pronounce it, plugins. Now I have got one here installed from 4, but ignore that. Look at the rest of these. Now this is for the standard version of the 5th version of the bundle. So what that means is if we look at, say, noise remover, Pro will not be registered, but standard will. So we'll go look at the standard version. So any of these that say standard and Pro, the Pro we're going to ignore, okay? Now as you can see, there are many of tools, even though the Pros don't count in this. We have things like Declipper, De-Esser, noise remover, Plosive remover, reverb remover, a interesting auto EQ, so not even just a standard EQ and auto EQ, a voice deepener, which is something very unique to this bundle. You don't see something called voice deepener very often. It's normally voice leveler, and this is quite an interesting aspect of this bundle. Now let's go to voice leveler a minute. Interestingly, sometimes you get this message that says it contains background noise. Use noise remover first for best results. So that's good to know. So let's cancel. Let's go to noise remover. Now here you can experiment with things like the output in decibels, the processing in percent. You can also adjust the focus here as well. So let's just see what it's like on default. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how things we do and stuff like that. But it is American, so what can you expect? Now let's actually turn it down. I'm thinking it doesn't need that much. Let's try roughly 20%. Let's just say. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how things we do and stuff like that. But it is American, so what can you expect? The actor Olivier Johnson. Bear in mind there's a few mistakes in that podcast, so don't listen too much to it. I haven't edited it yet. Now let's have a look. Basically, it's you gotta want to experiment a little bit. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly. Don't forget to play around with these focuses as well. I'm going to revert to okay, so let's see. Just play around basically. To be honest, basically the trouble is with this one is I am using a pretty good microphone, so you can't really hear much noise. But for a good example, let's just apply this. Now, once it applies, I'm actually going to go to leveler and see if it still gives a message about the issue with noise. Right, so then we go back to audio units or whatever it's called on Windows. Let's have a look at voice leveler. Okay, interestingly, it thinks it's still an issue with noise. So shall we try this again? Let's go to effects, and I may cut some of this out because some of it is just playing around back and forth. So I may edit some of this out, but let's take a look, shall we? Bear in mind there is an info window here. If we click this, we can hover over different elements to see what they do. I am just going to apply this. Now you can probably see from the background there the waveform has changed quite a bit with that last processing. Well, to be honest, I'm going to ignore this for now because I really don't hear much noise. So let's just try it out. Now this here has the same kind of interface. You have the output in decibels, which is default set to 0. You have processing set to 40, which we can change. You have the info to see what various bits and bobs mean. You even have this handy little feature here of a breath control. But let's just ignore the breath control right now and hit preview. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how things we do and stuff like that. But it is American, so what can you expect? The actor Olivia. That's Olivier, by the way, but never mind. Okay, so we can experiment with this. This sounds actually quite good. Let's just put breath control on and preview it again. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how things we do and stuff like that. But it is American, so what can you expect? The actor Olivia. Okay, now let's see. Is there any breaths in this bit here? Well, if not, I'm going to look at some of the other tools here for you, and then I'll go back to experimenting with breath control on another section of the audio. Okay, now what I really want to check out for us is Voice Deepener. Now, as you can probably tell, I don't have a very deep voice, so let's see how this goes. Now, this again is a very similar interface. So once you get used to one, you go get used to most of them. You have the decibels, the processing. You can look at the info for various tools on and off. You've got the A and B here, your level. You've got though down here normal or punchy. Well, let's have a look at normal, but I think punchy is probably what we're going to go for. Let's have a look. It was also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how things we do. Let's try punchy. It is also set in England, so if you're from England. Now let's experiment with processing. Whoopsie. Whoops. Okay. Let's try to get this higher. And I'm messing it up somehow here. Okay. Can we manually type it in? Yes, we can. Excellent. So if your mouse has been a bit silly like that, you can type in a figure. Let's try 60. There you go. That's nice and simple. Let's try this. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly. Now that definitely sounds deeper this time. I am actually going to turn the volume down though. Okay. Now let's try that again on normal. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like yeah. Yeah, that is definitely deeper. It still sounds like me, which is, of course, the whole point. You don't want to transform your voice into some completely different person. That still sounds like me. You can still tell it's me, but there is definitely a deepening of the voice there, which, to be honest, I had my doubts about this, but you can definitely hear it there. Now, that's just be insane and go to like 85%. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly. Yeah, definitely a lot deeper. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly. You're probably going to want to use it lower than that because I actually don't like the way it sounds because I don't like my voice at the best of times, and having it deepened like that actually in some ways make it worse. I thought it was going to make it sound a lot better. So let's just, I think I've overdone it. So let's try a compromise of around 70%. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few. So I think you'll find that's overkill. Let's try 68. Yeah, let's try that. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly. Okay, let's just leave it at that, and we're going to apply it. Now we go back to here. Now we have all sorts here we can do. We can look at things like declipper. I don't think there's any clipping because I have the Evo 4 audio interface, and that actually has a cool feature called Smart Gain. So every time before I record, I set Smart Gain, which adjusts the level, so it shouldn't go too high or too low. It should be just right for its gain. But you know what? Let's just try this out anyway. I need to show it to you anyway. So we have declip on and off. We have type 1 or type 2. So a bit of experimentation again here. Quality standard high. I'm going to just have it on high. Why not? It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how things we do and stuff like that. But it is American, so what can you expect? The actor, it's actually pretty good in. Now, I'm not going to play the whole of that again. I'm just going to play a couple seconds. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little. Okay, let's just apply that. I'm not going to play around too much with it right now. Okay, now let's go back to audio units or whatever Windows likes to call these sort of things. Now, we have an interesting tool here. Before we go into the others, I just thought I'd show you the cleanup assistant. And what we can do here is we can set basically a list. So let's go to, for example, EQ. Then we can have over here noise remover. And then over here we can have voice leveler and then voice dampener. Up here we also have presets, which is pretty handy because you've got add clarity, you've got audiobook narrator. So I'm actually going to do that. Actually, that audiobook narrator for something like a podcast actually sounds pretty good, pretty decent for how you probably would want a podcast sounding. So that is a nice surprise. Bedroom noise removal while I'm in a bedroom. So let's just check this out. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't really like the sound of that. Of course, it could depend a lot upon the room you're in, microphone you use. So experiment yourself. Loud and clear voice, deeper voice, deep radio voice. I want to try that. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how things we do and stuff. That actually isn't too bad, but it's something about the way it's deepened the voice that is just not very good. I don't like the sound of it. However, bear in mind you're using a preset, but you can still dial it down to like 50. Enter. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few. Still not quite right, but the point is you're using a preset, which is a really good starting point, especially that audiobook one I really like, but you can still edit it to your needs. You don't have to leave it at the defaults of the preset. So you've also got things like dialogue leveling, indoors vlog. There's actually quite a few, and look what we have here, podcast, and there's two speaker single microphone. Let's just have a look at a few more. Let's have a look at nasal voice. This one actually, you'll notice, is one that doesn't use all the slots. You always add another one yourself. It is also set in England, so a few silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how. Not too bad. Now podcast, because I'm a podcaster and this is a podcast I've recorded. Let's just do this last one, shall we? Now, again, you got De-Esser, stuff like that. Now, if you really find that you don't want the De-Esser, you can switch it to another one. Or here you can turn on breath control as well. So let's just have a look at this. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how, how things we do and stuff like that, but it is American, so what can you expect? The actor Olivia. That's not too bad, really. Good starting point. So, of course, like I say, you can still do things like, presets on normal plosive mode. Let's have extreme. De-Esser, normal. Let's have broad. You don't have prev control on, or turn it off, turn it on, whatever. So I actually find the audio cleanup assistant and its plugins are really handy. And of course, as I'm sure you already have noticed, you can save your own as well, or go back to empty, which is a fresh start. You can also turn them on and off to bypass them up here. Okay, let's have a look at some others. Now you've kind of seen some of the things like the De-Esser and stuff in the assistant, but I will quickly show you the Plosive and De-Esser very quickly. Now, again, same interface as all the rest. That's a good. You learn one, you can learn the rest. But you've also got normal and extreme mode here. Anyway, yeah, basically, if you learn one interface, you can learn them all. Once you know one, you know them all. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. And if we have a look at the De-Esser, it's exactly the same. Just you've got broad and normal down here. You've even got the level there. You've got pretty much everything that the rest has. Now, unless you're a real audiophile, what I would do myself personally, if you're doing this for, say, an audiobook or a podcast, something like that, or just cleaning up your video audio, I would probably just go to the cleanup assistant. Whoops, I don't know why it's off screen. And then you can hit default, and I would probably use the one you find best here. Like if you say maybe you want to just be loud and clear, or you want to remove some bedroom noise, you select whichever one you find is best and hit apply down here, and you're good to go. So for example, that is exactly what I'm going to do. Now this might not sound great because I haven't just used this audio assistant. I've applied a bunch of stuff I've been playing around with for this review. But let's just apply it and see what happens. And in a minute I will go ahead and tell you about the Pro. Although I can't show it to you, I've got the standard, but I will briefly tell you the difference, and I will tell you the prices of both. Okay, now as you can see, actually applying that undid some of the bits I had done earlier. Now let's just hit play. It is also set in England, so if you're from England like I am, there's a few little silly mistakes and things that don't quite fit with us or how, things we do and stuff like that, but it is American, so what can you expect? The actor Olivia. Now that is purely with basically 2 clicks. That is simply opening up the assistant, selecting narrator audio, the audiobook narrator, and hitting apply. I literally did not do anything else, and you've got at least a good starting point, even if you want to do more to it. And that was using um, voice leveler, De-Esser, plosive remover, and AutoEQ. It didn't even use the voice deepener because it is just, as far as I know, just the 5. But you can add another one to this. So you can't have more than 5 of these in the cleanup assistant, but 5 is a lot, because look at that, you've got most of what you want there: the EQ, De-Esser, Plosive, Voice Leveler, and there was one other, I believe. No, anyway, that is all you're going to really want in most cases. But say you still want to actually deepen the voice, you can add one more still here and have that, and then apply that to, like, what did we tend to use? 60%? Punchy.
Love horror podcast. I love horror. Do you? Welcome to Love Horror Podcast. Okay, on this episode, I'm going.
Actually think that sounds pretty good, to be honest. And I didn't really do anything, did I? I opened the cleanup assistant and selected the audiobook narrator preset, and I didn't really adjust any settings apart from I decided, well, I've got a free slot, I'll add voice deepener and hit punchy in 60%. And that is literally all I did, was add deepener and changed it from 40 to 60%, and that was basically it. And there I've got a pretty good starting point, really. In fact, I might actually just leave it at that and apply that to this podcast and use those settings for the podcast I upload. And even if I don't use this tool or all of the tools of this bundle in the future of my podcast, I think what I'm going to do, at least for now, is this podcast episode, which will be the one on The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix. I will add this to the description along with this review, and this one will just use those ERA 5 bundle tools standard, and I won't use any other plugins, and you can check out what my podcast sound like that episode using just these tools. Now here we are, I've gone to the website to show you. Now you get, as I've mentioned, remover, voice deepener, auto EQ, voice leveler, reverb remover, de-esser, declipper, explosive remover, and that really handy plugin tool, audio cleanup. Now, there is a free trial, and also bear in mind this does not have pro of the various tools. How much is this? Well, they have actually a few options. You can buy it outright for $299, which is quite a lot, to be honest, but a lot of these plugins are. You can do monthly for $15 a month, so kind of things like Adobe has, the subscription with the various programs in it for a monthly fee. Or if you prepay for a whole year, it works out at roughly $7.99 a month. So if paying for it in one go is too much, there is a monthly option as well. Now before we leave this site, I'm going to show you the Pro bundle. Now what does the Pro bundle include? Like I say, this isn't a review for Pro, only standard, but let me just quickly show you. It has the audio cleanup like the other one, declipper, plosive remover, voice leveler, voice deepener, auto EQ, but then it gets a bit different. We have room tone match, we have a Pro De-Esser, a Pro reverb remover, and a Pro noise removal tool. This also has a trial. Now this one is a amazing $999 to buy outright, or it is included in their bundle for $39 a month, or if you prepay for a whole year, you can get it for equivalent to $25 a month for a whole year. But then bear in mind, you then would have to resubscribe after a year. You don't keep it after a year. So yeah, there you have it, a really good bundle for audio effects, especially since it does have the voice Deepener, which is, I think, a very unique tool to this bundle, unlike some other companies, because they have things like de-essers, noise removal tools, etc. But this has, in addition to a voice leveler, it also has the deepener, and that does seem to actually make a noticeable difference. You also then have the included cleanup assistant, so you can actually a bundle up to 5 of these, or select from a preset, which is a good starting point. Even if you're not too sure about all the settings, you can go to the assistant, select something like podcast ready or narrator or radio or whatever, and then that will apply the best settings, and then that is a really good starting point. Now the price is a lot for one go if you want to buy it outright, like a lot of people do. But the good thing is, unlike some other companies, you do have that option of paying monthly. Then that also means you can, if you find you're not going to be using them for a while, you can always cancel and resubscribe at a later point. So I do definitely recommend you, at the very least, check out the trial version and see if it's for you and how you get along with it. Personally, I actually do like it, especially its cleanup assistant and the voice leveler and deepener. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.